a positional group like the tight end group, this is the draft class to do it. It is very deep.
I'm with Green Bean. I mean, to me, the tight ends that you want to have on a team, it's always nice if you can get the guy that does it all.
I think it's going to be a functional part of the offense. You better get somebody in there that can play, or get a couple guys that do something, extraordinarily well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dom C here with the Talking Jets Network. I'm lucky enough to grab tight end from Georgia Tech, Jackson Hollis. Jackson, how's it feel to be back on the field, my brother?
It's great, man. You know, right when we were getting on that bus, I was just excited.
And that's Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech. Now, he didn't say anything. He continued and did all the drills on an ankle. Another guy with under a 4% drop rate throughout his collegiate career.
Jets Network were able to get a hold of Terrence Ferguson, tight end, Oregon. Dude, great practice so far. How's it feel to be back on the field?
Oh, man, it feels good to be out here. I love competing. You know, there's a lot of great players out here, so go against
Meet our friend Harold Fannin.
See, here with the Talking Jets Network, lucky to grab Bowling Green tight end Harold Fannin Jr. Harold,
former college quarterback, he's thrown, he's got touchdown passes in his career, He matches movements and he matches, he's got quick feet. Like I said, he's another guy who's got a nose for the ball, turns the ball over all the time. Again, another smooth mover, clicks and closes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I'm Jeremy. Got my friend Dom C from Jets Chaos, Project Prospect. And we are here to talk about wide receivers. But first, I have to ask my friend Dom C, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. I got a lot going on, man. All good stuff. Just been very, very busy, man. We're getting there, right? Like, I think it's like 32, 31 days until the draft.
Ooh, it's so exciting.
It's so close. It's so close, man. And then we can start it all over for 26 season, man.
It's always the exciting part of the year, man, when you start closing in on the draft. And it's always fun to look back. I'm trying to make a point to do it more, where I write down all my favorite guys in like November or December, like whenever we first start looking. Hopefully that'll be later in the year each year if we finally get better. And then see where we are come April 1st.
Yeah.
As we approach April and what's changed and what's not changed. And even since before the Senior Bowl, then going into the Senior Bowl, we always come back with a totally different perspective after the Senior Bowl, right? We always fall in love with guys and have a whole bunch of different guys. And then some of them fall off because there's a couple of guys I think that we really loved in the Senior Bowl that then kind of fell off a cliff. We don't talk about him as much. And I think there's one I'm thinking of that we're going to talk about today pretty soon. But anyway, wide receivers.
Yeah.
And tell me about the class. Let's start by talking about the group overall.
So it's really different than some of the classes that we've had in recent years, Jeremy, because I hate to say that it's a down class. Because I don't think it's necessarily a down class. Like it's just funny, and with a lot of these positional groups, it's just not very top heavy, right? You have a couple names at the top, but even the names at the top are not like, hey, you can't miss prospects. You got to take them. They're going to be off the board by pick 5, something along those lines. But there's some really good guys. I mean, I have 18 guys that graded with a round 4 grade or better, and I had 14 of those are rounds 2 to 4. So that's just where the meat and potatoes are. That's just where the juice of this draft really is. I think there's going to be some players. I don't know if there's some impact. There's many impact players as we can expect from last year. Like last year was pretty crazy when you have guys like Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey. We forget McConkey went in the second round. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's so funny you say Ladd McConkey because at the Senior Bowl how in love I fell with Ladd McConkey.
Yeah. So and that's just to name a few, right? That doesn't even include like Odunze, who really didn't take off. He was on a limited role, and Marvin Harrison got off to a slow start, but then really kicked it into gear. But those names, like there was 5, 6, 7 guys taken in the top 40 picks. I don't know if we're going to see that this year. It wouldn't surprise me if there's only 2 guys taken in the first round. It wouldn't
That would
surprise
be
me at all.
that would be absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Wild. I do have a prediction though. I'm
Okay.
not gonna
Yeah, we'll
spill
talk about it at the end.
Yeah, at the end we'll talk about it. There are some guys that that you and I both really like a lot.
Mhm.
That hot take, I'm gonna say, I think could go at the end of the first rounds. As much as I would love them to be available to us at 42,
Yeah.
I have this. If there were scouts at that Senior Bowl that saw some of those practices that we were watching,
Yeah.
I'm worried that some of these guys might come off the board a little early.
Yeah, and listen, and the thing with this class, there's a lot of variety, right? There's a lot of variety. There's so many different types of receivers in this class. If you need yourself a big body possession type wide receiver, you can get one. If you want a guy who's going to dominate in the slot, you can find one. If you want a guy that can do a little bit of everything, a little inside out versatility, there's tons of those guys too. So the class, like I said, I don't think it's super top heavy. It's not nearly as top heavy as it was last year. Grading wise, I'll put it this way. My top rated receiver in this class would have graded out as my 5th receiver if you combined last year's to this year's.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, it's hard to argue that. I mean, like I immediately, my head goes to definitely 3, right?
Yeah.
That come right off the top of my head. That
Yeah.
number 1 this year would not have, no way. Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, and I think
Odunze, Harrison, Neighbors, and Worthy all had higher grades than my number 1 receiver in this class. Now, that's not to say that this number 1 receiver is going to be bad. It's just I think it's a testament to how strong how top heavy the class was last year. You know what I mean?
Right. And if this receiver that's your number 1, he could become a superstar. Like he could become a premier guy. So people have to remember, we're just ranking him based on what we're seeing in college with no idea what's going to transform and happen in the NFL and how they're going to develop. And, we're just doing the best we can. And no one, you never know when the number 8 guy in a class or the number 15 guy in a class, like Puka Nuka, right? I mean, did anybody have him in their top 3? I mean,
yeah.
Like it's just, you just never really know 100%. So
yeah,
I think everybody should just take it with a grain of salt. This is just what you're seeing and and how you would rank them based on best guess. But we know that no one's going to nail this and get this perfect.
Correct. Do you want to get into some of the honorable mentions, if you will?
Yeah, I love the honorable mentions.
We'll go backwards.
About.
So I'm going to give you 3 names, and they're not 11, 12, and 13. These are just some guys who just missed the cut. And I have watched, 41 wide receivers. Actually, 42, because I have one on here that I have notes on that I didn't update my spreadsheet with. So I have 42 guys that I've actually watched film on. And I'm going to start with my number 14 guy in the class. And you talked about the Senior Bowl, right? If you were at the Senior Bowl, if you watched the Senior Bowl from home, there's absolutely no doubt you didn't hear people talk about Tez Johnson, right? Yeah. I mean, Tez Johnson is the things that he was doing on the field. And again, those drills and those practices are meant for those wide receivers. They're at such an advantage. There's no contact. There's, a lot of the times it's with just shoulder pads and helmets, you're getting wide open fields where you can have, you can have double breaking routes, you can break in, out, so on and so forth. But the way he moves, man, is something different. You talk about like elite quickness, elite agility. You talk about that short area speed. That's Tez Johnson. There's a lot to like about him. Like I said, route running is pretty precise. Even though everything is going to be taken from the slot, he's super, super twitched up athlete. It just creates yards of separation. Let's call it what it is. At 161 pounds, he is and with under 9-inch hands and under 30-inch arms, he is a 1% one percentile in the height weight measurements, the size measurements. He just and Tank Dell was another guy who was really, really small, and he came in at 177.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tez Johnson's just 15 pounds less than what Tank Dell was.
And at that weight, like people have to understand how big of a deal that is.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a very high percentage when you're talking about people that weigh under 180 pounds.
Yeah, I know it's ridiculous. And they say he's a high character guy. Maybe or maybe you don't. You know who his stepbrother is?
I don't.
He was
Oh yeah. I
So
do.
Tez Johnson, fun story about him. Tez Johnson came from kind of like a rough upbringing.
Yeah.
I think his dad is not. I'm not going to get into it because I can't really speak 100% to it. But his dad's not in his life. I don't know if he's in jail or if it's just not in his life. And his mom had some problems too. So he was taken in by his high school coach, and his high school coach also had a son who played on the team who happened to be the quarterback.
Yeah, Bo
Nix. Yeah. Yeah. So he was he was adopted by him. So he's a stepbrother of Bo Nix. I think that's pretty neat. So yeah, listen, I think Tez Johnson's the day 3 guy. Would I be surprised if I saw him go on late on day 2? No, somebody's going to get a guy that they can utilize 10, 15 plays specific for him and use him on kick returns and punt returns where he can be dynamic. And that's Tez Johnson. Another slot specific guy that I want to talk about that I think, deserves his flowers is Xavier Restrepo out of Miami.
Yeah, I like him. I like him.
Yeah. He's built a little different. He's only about 5'9", 5'9" and change, but he's 202 pounds. So he's solid. He's a different build than Tez Johnson. He's just smaller in stature, but he's built like a bulldog. And he's just a really good all-around athlete. He blends, short area quickness with strength. He's, muscular. He can play through contact. He's got strong hands. He's a really, really adept, really insane route runner. And has good hands as well. 4% drop rate through his senior year in high school, in college, catching balls from Cam Ward. Just like a really, really good slot receiver. 1,100 yards last year. I think 6 or 7 touchdowns. He's going to be a guy that definitely has a place in the NFL. And it's not, and he's going to be a slot receiver, but he's going to be one that is rather effective. I could see him, as the years go on, I could see him getting in place in an offense and being a 70, 80 catch guy year in and year out. Like that's the kind of consistency you can get from Xavier Restrepo. Yeah,
I really like him. These guys are, they might be a little better than we think, but it's all going to be based on how they're used as well. I mean, I could see him as a third down specialist, quarterback's best friend. Mm-hmm. Tez Johnson, I think if you put him on a Kansas City, he scares me a lot more than if you stick him on the Tennessee Titans, Yeah. I'm going to be a lot more worried about a guy like Tez Johnson. And we were at the Senior Bowl, a lot of us were joking about it. Can you imagine Andy Reid and, gets his hands on that kid and it might not be huge numbers in the box score, but it would be just strategic little moments where he would just have big plays and he'd be a real thorn in the side. And, he's going to help a team win. And I think Restrepo might just be that possession receiver that third down.
Yeah.
Just a smart player who finds a way to get open.
Yeah. I mean, he's built different, but his game reminds me a lot of Wes Welker. I mean, just that, that's reliable guy in the slot across the middle. It's going to run those crossing routes, going to find the soft spots in the zone. It's going to catch everything you throw at him on third down and be able to, use his size or diminutive size to his advantage because he runs low. He's got good contact balance. Like I said, he plays through contact. Just really good. Restrepo's gonna be a player in the league for sure, and he's my number 12 receiver. He's not that far off. He could have been number 10. My number 10, my number 11, and my number 12 receivers are all within like a tenth or 2/10 of a point of one another. So,
right.
Yeah. So he's right there. But I'll get into number 10 if that works for you.
Yeah, I love number 10. So
and number 10, and again, we talked about slot guys. This is another one. is going to be another slot specific guy, and that's out of Iowa State, Jalen Knoll. 5'10" and change, about 200 pounds. Again, same kind of idea or build as Xavier Strepo, right? Explosive, short area quickness, has, it can create separation, can can't linebackers and safeties can't keep up with them. He can outrun, just the precision in his route running is really good. I think he's really good with the ball in his hands, like after the catch. That's where I think he really is going to make his name be known in the NFL. Doesn't have that third gear, which is probably why he's down here. He's not going to blow by a lot of guys, a lot of cornerbacks, a lot of slot cornerbacks on those slot fades and stuff like that. He just doesn't have the long speed. He's more quick than he is fast, which is fine. You know what I mean? There's been plenty of guys that are a lot slower than him, but he just understands the game of football. He needs to definitely, shore up a little bit. He's got too many concentration drops for my liking. I think he had 10 drops this year. So, but he can force missed tackles on defenders. A good security blanket, a guy that's actually surprisingly has been getting a lot of buzz recently. Like I've heard some noise that he could go, as high as the end of first round, beginning of the second round. Now that's a little high for me. I have a pure third round grade on him. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody sees him and sees the technicality that he plays with and says, yeah, that's going to play really well. The way, he uses footwork, the way he bursts out of the top of his stems and into his breaks. I mean, it's really just really, really beautiful. And, he's a lock to come into the NFL and return kicks and punts. He's a dangerous punt returner. So,
that's something the Jets could use, but it is hard to imagine us grabbing him anytime before the fourth round, only because, we have Malachi Corley. Unless they hate him, unless they have no faith in him at all, it just doesn't seem like the right fit for us. We need a number two. We need a boundary receiver. Also, it would shock me if he went early second, late first. That would shock me because
it would shock me too, just because of some of the names that will probably still be on the board.
Right, and to me, if you're a guy who's not a boundary receiver, if you're a slot receiver, you better have an incredibly high ceiling. Like you better really get people excited. Yeah. If you're going to tell me, oh yeah, a guy who didn't pan out, who I thought was that guy was like, for example, was Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
That was a guy I thought that was a slot receiver who you could take at the end of the first round, early second round, legitimately, because I thought he was going to be a freaking stud.
Yeah.
But I don't see Jalen Noel right now. I don't see him at that level that Elijah was in college.
Yeah, he's I think he's actually, and this is no shade towards Elijah Moore, because Elijah Moore was a phenomenal route runner. Like that's, I think, where he really, really shined. And Jalen Knoll can do exactly what he can do without the ball in his hands. I think he can do more with the ball in his hands too, in forcing the missed tackles, so on and so forth. Like I said, he just needs to get a little bit more consistent, clean up some of those concentration drops. And you're going to get a solid WR3, which is not a bad thing. People remember, they play in the league too. Most teams run 11 personnel, so 3 wide receiver sets are very prominent. So that's Jalen Knoll in a nutshell.
Yeah. You need these guys. It's just a matter of, I think, where they go, where the value is, where they go in the draft. Yeah. Again, unless they really don't like Corley, I don't think you're going to see him on the Jets, but I love the punt returner thing. And I love the player. I love watching him in the Senior Bowl. I thought he did a terrific job. I enjoy, I got excited about him as a player when we were there for sure.
Yeah. So I'll move to number 9. And this is a little interesting. I'm a little lower on him than the consensus.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you, he's got a late second round, early third round grade for me. If he was off the board in the early 40s, I wouldn't be surprised, because there's a lot of people who really like the potential in him.
Potential, yeah.
Yeah, and that's Alec Ayomaner out of Stanford. So he's big. He's 6'2" and change. He's 210 pounds. He is well built, solid, like looks like DK Metcalf. Not nearly as big as DK Metcalf, but when I talk about looks like DK Metcalf, he is chiseled. This guy is like one big, chiseled out of granite. Strong as an ox, and knows how to use that strength and that big body to his advantage. He uses it to get leverage, box out defenders, goes up the ball. He'll hit you. He'll put his shoulder down and run right through you. He's really hard to defend in press man coverage because he's so just naturally gifted and naturally strong. But for a guy that big, he's got some explosiveness to him too. His feet are quick. He's not like jitterbug quick like Tez Johnson or Jalen Noel, but his feet are quick and he can get to top speed relatively quick and then shut it down. So, I see him as an X receiver. I see him as a boundary guy, on solo boundary guy, where routes like those hitches or those comeback routes, are going to really play into him, into his wheelhouse really, really well. Good route runner, ran a full route tree at college. Has a pretty nice release package, super strong hands, good at the catch point, and like I said, the strength really plays in because he's a hell of a blocker too, and I think that's why I could see teams being that much more interested because he's not one dimensional. The questions with him, one lie around the hands, almost a 10% drop rate throughout college, not very good. Bobbles a lot of the balls, and that's probably trying to move a little or do too much before you secure the catch. So that definitely has to get cleaned up. He's not the athlete that some of these guys are, so the ceiling might be kind of tempered back a little bit. Like, I don't know if Alec Iomaner is ever going to be a wide receiver 1 in the league, but he could be a really good 2 or a number 1 on a bad team. Think somebody put this out there the other day, and I never thought about this comp, but it makes a lot of sense. To me, he's like Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall was a great receiver. Yeah. Alec Iomaner couldn't be a great receiver. Brandon Marshall was never the cream of the crop, though. He was a number 1 for the Jets for those couple years, and he had some other seasons where he splashed, but he was probably always in that 12 to 15 to 20 range overall, every year that he played. That's where I see like Alec Iomaner be. And on top of that, it's a little bit older. He had 2 knee injuries already in college. In 22, he redshirted because of an ACL, and then working back from the ACL, he injured the MCL and the meniscus on that same knee. So he's got some problems there. But yeah, like the strength profile is so good. To me, he's going to make a team that looks for that big, strong boundary X receiver very, very happy. If he can clean up a lot of the stuff, you're not going to make him get more athletic. He is as athletic as he's going to get, but I'd say he's a solid B in most places, which to me makes a really good complementary wide receiver.
If he slipped to 73 and the Jets hadn't taken a wide receiver yet and they grabbed him,
I think that's a steal. I think that's a steal.
Okay.
He could be in the discussion in round 2 for the Jets. If they wanted that big receiver, and some of these other guys that we're going to talk about are off the board, like it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think it's too early. Maybe a little early for me, but I don't think it's like I said, you could start talking about him in the 40s, and he's definitely going to be off the board by the end of round 2, I think.
Yeah, I know people have big dreams for players, but like if we took him in the second round, if we took him at 42, and it's a little bit of a reach, again, it's one of those things where people have to understand if he developed into a really good WR2, that's an okay value. Like
that's right.
Will I trade the 42nd pick in the draft for a really solid 700 to 900 yard, 6 to 8 touchdown, really good WR2?
That can help you in the run game because he's an elite blocker, both in the perimeter and
Yeah.
stalking and crackbacks and all that stuff. Like, he's big, he's physical. His skill set is very complementary to Garrett Wilson. So if we're talking Jet specific here, it could be a really good fit.
Yeah. I would say that there is a guy we're going to talk about, and obviously,
Yes.
if that person was on the board and we took Alec, I'd be very upset.
Yeah,
And
I know.
and
I know who
think
you're talking
we both
about.
know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that guy later. That's a guy that we both love. So, but here we are. I think it's a good prospect. I think if other people are off the board, I wouldn't be surprised. I think we have to, if we're not doing anything more in free agency, I think we absolutely are going to see one of our top 3 picks go towards the wide receiver. I don't see how we're going to enter the season with what we have in the wide receiver room, unless Lazard is staying. It's just really hard to imagine that being.
I would imagine Lazard is staying. I would put my money more on the side that he stays more so than he's cut, because at this point it just doesn't make it. Forget about the depth in the room, but it just doesn't make it's not financially responsible to get rid of him at this point. Right?
I said that from the beginning. We're paying him $6. Either way, we owe him half of it, and it's another $6 million to keep him.
Yeah, and people are saying, "Oh, $11 million for Alan Lazard." That's what the second and third wide receivers are getting now. Like, you saw what the contracts were. Slayton just got paid $13 million a year.
I really want to remind people that before he got hurt this year, he was back. He was the guy we signed originally and wanted originally. He was good.
Yeah.
He was getting touchdowns for us. He was making huge receptions. He was exactly what we wanted, and then he got hurt.
And then you also got to remember, I would assume, this is all assumption, but I would assume that the focal point of this offense is going to really be to pound the ball, run the ball a lot, right?
And
Run the ball and play action, and he's a blocker, man. And he could do it from the outside, he could do it from the slot. Like,
so's Corley, by the way.
Correct.
Corley's a blocker also.
Yeah. Not to the level of Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard's very good.
Right.
There's a couple wide receivers, Io Maynard being one of them, who's an excellent blocker. And so is this next guy that we're going to talk about.
And this is a guy who not only is a good football player, but he's a sentimental favorite for a lot of people who know his story.
Correct. Jack Besh out of TCU. Besh is a converted, similar to Alan Lazard, is a converted tight end, which I think really builds those blocking skills. Now, he actually was recruited, went to LSU, was recruited as a tight end. They converted into a wide receiver. And he played in 2021. He played all 13 games and was the leading wide receiver on that 21 team that had Neighbors, that had all these superstars that are in the league now. And Jack Besh was the leader as a freshman.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And then I don't know what happened in 22, but he didn't play as much. I don't know. I don't know if it was like they were, Brian Thomas was coming in and Neighbors was getting settled, and they were, he became an afterthought, and he only had 4 starts, and he ended up transferring right before the conference title game, before they played for the, he entered the transfer portal before the playoffs, or, there weren't playoffs back then, but before the conference title game, and he entered the transfer portal and moved to TCU. And his first year in TCU started out great. First 8 games, he was like he was outplaying what they thought he was going to play, and then he got hurt. Dealt with a leg injury that had bothered him a little bit through LSU, and then he came out in 2024, and he battled through again a knee injury before really stepping up and became second team All Big 12 this year. He's just so good. Big guy. He's your prototypical big slot, right? When you talk about big slots, that's what he is. Plus size frame, knows how to use it, knows how to use his size, understands leverage, understands catch point, strong hands, strong, big catch radius, doesn't struggle to separate in those short and intermediate routes. As good of a route runner as there is in this class. I think Emeka Egbuka is the best route runner. I think he's a close second. Just really, really good. But his moneymaker, man, is the incredible hands. This guy catches everything. You talk about 50-50 balls, and with Jack Besh, it's like 75-25. He catches everything. Last year, 64% contested catch rate on all balls. He just goes up and he gets it, and like you can tell the type of determination and heart that this guy plays with. We watched it at Senior Bowl. If you remember, he went up in the corner and he got in. It's not contact there, and he got leveled by the safety Dan Jackson on that one play and came down with the ball. Right, he just does that like constantly. Again, a really plus run blocker can help you in that game. Can help on those outside sweeps or those powers that or outside zones that go outside. Can peel off and lay out guys on those at the second level of those linebackers. TCU used him a lot in motion across the line and had him kick out on defensive ends. Like, that's the type of all-around game that he has. The knee injury is going to be like something that's serious. Seriously, probably it's going to hinder him a little bit, not in the sense of the physicality, just the fact that he's now dealt with for a couple years the same knee, same injury. And again, for a guy that doesn't have, top end speed or top end athleticism, you need him to be healthy, right? You need him to be healthy to produce, and he's got to show that he can do that. But yeah, man, this guy is a winner. Wherever he goes, he's a winner. He came out of nowhere this year. People started to talk about him. He had arguably the best Senior Bowl week of anybody that was there. And he became a household name, and a lot of it had to do because he came to the Senior Bowl the last week of January, after his brother was tragically murdered in the terrorist attack in New Orleans on January 1st.
Yeah.
So, he's playing with purpose, and, he's a guy that I'm sure you can, you want like 11 of those guys on your offense. If you had 11 Jack Beshes on your team, you're in good shape.
Yeah, you could see it. Like when we were there, it was very obvious. He's the heart guy. He's all heart. If you're a guy who loved Wayne Corbett, I'm not comparing the players and ability, but like when you want to talk about heart, he has that kind of heart, and like it's
perfectly said.
Yeah, it's going to be hard not to root for him or be happy no matter where he goes. I do because of the injury history and because of some, like his path. He's a guy who could slip.
Yeah.
He's a risk in the first 2 rounds. He's really risky. I mean, with the injury, you really got to worry about that. But if he's sitting there at 72, yeah, it's hard to argue that it's hard to be upset with a pick like that.
Yeah, and again for the Jets, I wonder if Jack Best is going to be a fit just because he's so. The pluses and the minuses are already what you have on the roster in Allen Lazard. Now, Allen Lazard's getting up there in age. Allen Lazard's not going to be here for a long time. So you could kind of have that pipeline guy. But for me, if I'm going to bring a receiver in, I want to bring somebody that has a little bit more of a complementary skill set to what Lazard and Garrett Wilson have already. So I just don't know if that's Jack Best. And that's not a knock. If the Jets took him, I'd be happy to have him because, you're going to get more, you're going to get more positives than negatives from Jack Besh. Yeah.
Now our next guy is not gonna lie, it's a surprise to me. I think that you have this guy a little further down the board than a lot of people.
You think?
I don't know. Oh, a lot of people.
Well, you know what? Yeah, maybe. I mean, listen, he's a solid second round guy. So the next 1, 2, 3, 4 guys are all second round guys, and they're all I could have grade wise, I put them in order of grades, but if you mixed up 7 and 5 or 7 and 4, I wouldn't no one's gonna kill you on it.
Right. Okay.
But I really like 6, 5, and 4 is why I have this guy here, and that's Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. Again, another just solid football player. Another guy started at small school, started at Louisiana Tech, with a wide open offense down there at Louisiana Tech, and played on special teams, did the whole thing. Transferred after the 2022 season, and he came into Ole Miss and just really took off. Like him and Jackson Dart had a really good connection and a really good symmetry. This guy is like a highlight reel, man. I mean, he's got probably the best hands in the class, and I mean that wholeheartedly. He's probably got the best hands in the class. You can throw it, he's going to catch it. Doesn't matter if it's off, off target. Doesn't matter if it's on him. If he has to go up and make a circus style catch, he does that too. Really powerful guy, 6'1.5", 212 pounds, built solid, plays solid, good contact balance. He runs through arm tackles. Really, really good route runner as well. I mean, I've watched him shake loose defensive backs they're going out of style, man. The thing is, you didn't see it too often, and that's not Trey Harris's fault. That's more so the Lane Kiffin offense in Ole Miss that really didn't ask him to do a lot. So he didn't run a full route tree, although I think he's more than capable of it. I think he's one of those guys that can be alignment versatile. You can play him outside as an X, but I think he can also line him up as a Z, as the movement receiver. I think he can play in the slot. Again, 90% of his snaps at Ole Miss came on the outside. But at Louisiana Tech, he was all over the formation. I think he really did that very well. Again, not a blazer. He's got okay speed. He can pull away from defenders, but he's not going to blow the top off of anyone. So I think Trey Harris is, again, when you talk about just like really, really solid complementary pieces, there's probably no better true wide receiver 2 in this class than Trey Harris. I don't know if he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1. Some people comp him, and I think it's a fair comp. Some people comp him to Cortland Sutton. Now, I think, I happen to like Cortland Sutton a whole lot more. I think Cortland Sutton's a pretty dang good receiver. And so if Trey Harris is getting comp to him, that there's a lot that's good, but the play style is very similar, right? They're both bigger, stronger, big body guys, know how to get open, they're not going to win any 4x400 relays, they don't have track speed, but they're football players and they just know how to go up and get the ball.
So Jets get up on the podium at 42. They take Trey Harris. We're not upset.
Not at all, because I think, like you said before, like 42 is a good spot to get a wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the reality is that you're not always going to be able to find a Justin Jefferson, right? Or, you're not always going to be able to find a Puka Nacua, right? Those are a dime a dozen. You get lucky with those.
Yeah.
Right. But if you used a guy that had a really high floor, like a Trey Harris, who I think he's a very high floor player, where you can get 80 catches for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns for 6 seasons, sign me up. Right?
Yeah. No, it sounds good to me. So, this should be encouraging. I want to everybody, if we don't take a wide receiver at 7, we're still at number 7. We have 6 more receivers to go.
Yeah.
That will all be, and including Ellick, who we just covered before. But we have a lot. There's a lot of guys that, if we really want to, will be on the board.
Yeah.
Someone is going to be on the board at 42.
I think realistically, from my number 2 to my number 9 are all could be on the board at 42. Realistically. Okay. And if my number 2 is there, forget it. Listen, all these guys are really good. Actually, I shouldn't say that, because some of these guys are going to go before him, but I'll get into that.
If we traded back to 19 or 20 and took your number 2 ranked guy, I'd be happy.
I'd be elated, man. I'd be elated. So this next guy was my number 4 receiver for most of the process from October, just until I finished rewatching. I went and rewatched some of the guys that had close grades on, and I bumped up 2 guys. So I bumped this guy down to number 6. That's Jalen Royals out of Utah State. He was my number 4 receiver for a while. He's like just outside of the top 50 for me. Actually, I don't even think I think he's in my top 50. Let me see. I might stand corrected on that. Hang on.
While you're doing
No,
that,
he's 52. He's 52. Go ahead.
I just want to call out Dana one more time. Again, I'll do it every show for this great background. You see the little things above us. You see that? That's
Yes.
me, and that's all Dano, man. That's all him taking care of us and hooking us up. And
Yeah.
check out the Danger Zone every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yes, definitely. Great show. I enjoy it every week. But yeah, Jalen Royals, man, is so good. He is so good. I think he's the closest thing that I've seen to Garrett Wilson in a couple years. Like, I think that's the kind of player he can be. Like,
so you're saying amazing route runner.
Just really, really good with the ball in his hand, amazing route runner, creates separation. He's got kind of a similar build. He's a little bit stockier, a little bit, a little bit more muscular. He pushes about 206 pounds at 6 foot tall. But a guy that small, contested catch king, 74% contested catch rate.
Jeez.
Yeah, on over 28 contested catch balls last year. Explosive. He doesn't like I said, he's got that gear. He can pull away. I don't know, and I guess I can find out. Let me see. One second. Let's see if I can pull it up. Jalen Royals. Rest. Let's see. He ran a 4.42 with a 1.5 split, which is really good. It's actually great for his, at 6 foot and a half, 205 pounds. Really, really good. And that's just the way he plays. He's explosive. His route running is, and again, for a guy who's only, just a shade over 6 feet tall, he shouldn't have that. He shouldn't have as good contested catch ability as he does. But man, his route running is smooth as could be, in and out. Sinks his hips over his toes, breaks in, breaks out. He had a 92 percentile in separation rate second among all the wide receivers in 2023. And that's important why I say that. Because he like I said, he's built like a bowling ball, contact balance. You can't get him down in the first tackle, create separation. Coming out of 2023, he was a monster for Utah State. All right. The problem was he got hurt last year. And he dealt with an injury that kept him out for most of the year. They didn't think he was going to be back in time. He pushed himself and he got back in time to go get down to the Senior Bowl. And, he didn't play in the game, but he got down there and he practiced. And, to show people that the lower leg injury that he has, I forget if it was a foot or an ankle that kept him out the majority of the year this year, was healed. And it was healed enough for him to run. He didn't do the agility drills at the combine, but he did run. Like I said, 4.42 is really good. 16 forced missed tackles, 40% of his yards came after the catch. Think about that. 40% of the yards in 2023 that he had came after the catch. So he's a yak monster, man. He like I said, he's Garrett Wilson light. And I absolutely love Jalen Royals. Now, again, is he too much like Garrett Wilson? Well, listen, what's better than one Garrett Wilson? Right?
Two Garrett Wilson. I mean, because because Garrett Wilson makes the big plays. He can make the plays in the corner. And we talk about big bodied guys because you have the guy that can get off of the quick RPO, whatever type of, right off the line. But having another guy who can do that also and having a choice is not a bad thing.
Correct.
And if Justin Fields is running for his life out of the pocket, having another guy like Garrett Wilson running free out there is not a bad thing. And I just wonder what a guy like Jalen Royals could have done if he played for Ohio State.
Yeah.
Or if he played even, can you imagine if he was at Penn State with Tyler Warren and Drew Aller, right? I mean, who had no wide receivers. Like, imagine playing in a big program like that where he could have been really stuck out as a star.
Yeah. So he had an interesting journey through college. So he was a 0-star recruit, got no offers whatsoever. So he went to a small college. It's It's like a prep, almost like a prep school. It's called Georgia Military Institute. In 2021, he played 11 games there, killed it, and he flew out to Utah for like a walk-on day that they had for all the colleges out there, Utah State, so on and so forth. And he ended up just flying out to try to get in front of some coaches all the way on the West Coast, and they offered him a contract on the spot, and he took it. So that's why he stayed at Utah State. And then once he was there, he became loyal to them and he didn't stay. I'm sure he could, he's just turning 22, so he could have entered the portal and played another year, so on and so forth. But I don't know how much more there is for a guy like Jalen Royals to really do in the NFL. To me, this is the time to kind of, in a class that might not be that as strong as years past, and is definitely not going to be as strong as years in the future. Next year's wide receiver class is a lot better on paper now than this one. So I think Jalen Royals is making the right decision by coming out, and he's a guy that's going to go in the second round.
Look, if we come to the podium and we grab him at 42, I will be very, very happy. Very happy.
Yeah, he's a guy. I don't know if he's going to go in the 40s. He could, and I wouldn't be shocked. But you know what I like? My ideal situation is, Jeremy?
Trade back to 55.
Trade a little bit back in second round. Let's gain another third round or a fourth round or something like that, right? And then you're sitting there in the 50s, walk away with a guy like Royals.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be great. The reason I love the idea of trading back number 7 a little bit is because I think there are 4 key positions we need, and we only have 3 picks.
Yeah.
And I think that we would cover pretty much everything to make me really happy if we were to just get a 4th. If we could get wide receiver, defensive tackle, tight ends, and a safety, or a right tackle. Really we need 5, but 4 would be fine. I just feel like we need one more top 80 pick, just one more, and it would really do a great thing for us. So yeah, if we could trade back 42 to 55, get Jalen Royals and pick up another 3rd round pick, like let's say number 80 or something. My God, that would be such a home run grand slam for us. So
yeah, I agree.
But beautiful thing.
So my next guy, I know people are going to freak out in the chat about, because this is probably the biggest buzz name of all the wide receivers here. And that's Matthew Golden from Texas.
Fast.
What's funny is I was looking through my scouting report in preparation for this. And what do I have in my little double negative column? Lacks elite athleticism. Obviously, I didn't see in his game film the fact that he was going to run 4.27. You know what I mean?
That's freaking crazy fast, bro.
Yeah.
Crazy fast.
So, but I put, that's one of the things that I had in my scouting report from his film, which was done well before the combine or anything like that. Listen, there's a lot of hype that Matthew Golden might be the first receiver off the board. You run 4.2s in the 4.2s, or high 4.2s, low 4.3s. You automatically go up right up the ladder. So
how big is he?
He is 6 foot and 6 inches. So he's 6 foot 6 inches, 192 pounds. It's a little light for my liking. Needs to put a little sand in the pants. Probably also will help him get off of press a little bit better, because he's not the most physical receiver. I could see him struggling a little bit at times to get off press because he doesn't have the bulk, doesn't play that power profile in his game's not there. But man, there's a lot to like about him, right? Active blocker. Even
if you put 15 pounds of muscle on him and slow him down to a flat 4.4 at 6'6", give me a freaking break. That is a problem in the NFL.
Yeah. So and on top of it, again, another transfer. When he was at Houston, he was excellent. And he made his money really as a returner. He has 4 kick return touchdowns in his career at Houston, not even at Texas. He returned 2 kicks in 9 attempts within 2 games for Houston in 2022 or 2023. But real good ball skills. Knows how to go up and get the ball. Can, again, does a lot of those circus catches, goes up and plucks balls at its high point. Good route runner also, very nuanced, full route tree. I love the way he changes his tempo in his routes, where he'll look like he's slowing down to break, to break in or break out, and he'll get, he'll get the defensive back a little bit on his heels, and then he'll just second gear it right past him, or like he'll use his shoulders and his head to really deke the defender one way and just create tons of separation to go the other way. Really, really good nuanced route runner, smooth athlete. Like I said, the long speed's going to play a lot. I think he does a great job with his release package, mixing it up, not just going to the same thing. Like I said, I already talked about his abilities as a kick returner. But you tie that in with real sure hands, and this could be the Justin Jefferson of the 2025 draft. Guy that gets taken a little bit lower. I think he'll end up in the 15 to 20, 20 range, 25 range. Again, he might be the first receiver taken. He could be the first receiver off the board at 14 or 15. Wouldn't surprise me.
This could be the BTJ.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. That's a fair point. A lot of, not the same physical dimensions as BTJ, but a lot of the same game. And you see how well that worked, and that skill set translates in the NFL. That's Matthew Golden for me. I wish he was a little bit bigger. I wish he had a little bit more weight. And again, I don't know if another 10 pounds is going to sap some of that, that elusiveness that he has. So I'm curious to know what the next level and what the coaches think at the next level. They might want to keep him exactly what he is. Or like you said, they might want to, have him spend a year, let him play like this, but really spend an off season getting into the weight room and getting up to the 215 pound, realm, and see if that extra muscle will really help him at the next level. But he's a first round guy. He's a second round grade for me, but I think he's going to go in the first round. That's Matthew Golden in a nutshell.
Wow. So we got a question.
Okay.
We're going to we'll come off track because it is a super chat.
Sure.
E-Boogie, the boogie, E-Boogie. He's asking about a couple players if you know them and you want to do a quick little synopsis.
Sure. Pat Bryant is your big framed, prototypical big body X receiver, right? 6'3.5", 210 pounds, tough as nails, not very fleet of foot. He doesn't have the foot speed. He doesn't have the twitch or the explosiveness that you would like in a lot of receivers. A little bit plodding at times, but very effective in what you want a big X receiver to do, right? The jump balls, the slants, the effective blocking and stuff like that. He's just not going to wow anybody. He's not an uber athlete. He's, to me, Kenny Golladay, right? And guys like Kenny Golladay are a dime a dozen. Allen Robinson's another guy. That's the kind of guy Pat Bryant is for me.
Okay.
Yeah. And Antoine Wells, he's an interesting one, right? Because he's an older prospect. He's already 24. He's going to be 25 this year. He's a guy he transferred a bunch of times. He was at a small military prep school in 2019. So he was in the 2019 draft class. COVID happened. Then he went to prep school. Then he went to James Madison where he killed it. He was I think he was the FSC freshman of the year, and he transferred to South Carolina. And man, in 2022, he was so good. He was excellent. Second team All SEC, dominant. 23, foot surgery. Right? 23, foot surgery, and it just kind of sapped a lot of his juice from him. And he was okay this year. He wasn't great. He's got some burst. He's got some reliable hands. He's got a little bit of wiggle in him. He's definitely a yak guy. You get the ball in his hands quickly, and let him do the rest. But he doesn't have the long speed. He was never asked to run like a full route tree. He's Deebo Samuel. He's Deebo Samuel light, man. Both same school, same build. 6'1", 215 pounds. He's exactly what Deebo Samuel is. I don't think he's as athletic as Deebo Samuel or as fast as Deebo Samuel. But the same type of, that's the same type of guy that you're going to get in Juice Wells.
All right. Well, appreciate the extra little. Thanks for the super chat. That gets us a little bit of extra analysis out of Dom C.
Yeah.
But getting back to our top 10, we talked about Matthew Golden,
Yes.
who might be possibly your number 5, but you're acknowledging.
Listen, I'm lower than the consensus on Matthew Golden.
Right. Possibly the first wide receiver off the board. I hear it too. I hear there are people who absolutely love him. So
yeah. And again, I'm not knocking the guy. I just happen to really like I said, I only have 3 first-round grades on this class, and the guy that we're going to talk about here at number 4 just happens to be one of my favorites in the entire class.
Yeah, I like him better than your number 3. In my list, he'd be ahead of number 3 for sure.
Yeah.
You sent me to watch the wide receivers. You said, I'll watch the linemen, you watch the receivers. I walk down to the 15-yard line. I get a good view of where all the receivers are coming down the sideline, catching their passes. And quarterback, I forget who it was, throws up a deep pass that's short. So I just see this guy, I don't even know who he is, this wide receiver, slow down, tons of contact with the cornerback, but jumps up a mile into the air. And in the traffic and all the chaos, just the hands come up and grab the ball, and he comes down with the ball. And I said, I want that guy.
That's right.
And then I looked at his helmet. It was Iowa State. I looked at his number. I looked on the list, and it said his name, and that is, I'll let you say it.
Jaden Higgins, man. Yeah. Jaden Higgins. So good. And what Jeremy's talking about when he said, I sent him down. We now have a routine at the Senior Bowl. There's so much going on that we split our days, right? On the day, on like Monday or Tuesday, that is, Jeremy will go watch the receivers and the DBs, and I'll stay in the trenches, and then we'll flip flop the next day, so he gets to see the same guys that I do, just so we have more eyes on what's going on. And man, Jaden Higgins, I don't know why he doesn't get more love. You hear tons about Matthew Golden, you hear tons about Jack Besh, you hear even tons about like Trey Harris and Jalen Knoll. No one talks about Jaden Higgins, and I'm still not exactly sure, because 6'4.5", 210 pounds, a 4.43 40-yard dash with a 1.5 10-yard split, explosive, tall, great frame, bigger wingspan than Will Campbell. Bigger wingspan than Will Campbell.
That's not hard.
Yeah. Almost an 11-foot broad jump. So the athleticism is there. That he can get up and get the ball. To me, he's a red zone threat at absolute worst, right from the get-go, right from the jump. He's a red zone. He's a guy that you can utilize in your red zone package from day one, but he's so much more than that, right? I think he knows how to use his size. He knows how to use his length. He knows how to use the boundary. He's got some of the best footwork of all the receivers. Again, smooth. He is a smooth mover, plays with just like an uncanny like level of calmness the whole time. At every time, the IQ is there. Like it says, he knows how to position himself and wall off the defenders, which is so important, especially when defenders are closing down and trying to crash from you. He's big enough, he's strong enough where he can hold them off and get his body in between the ball and the defenders, and then with that huge catch radius can get out and get the ball. Right? He gets zone coverage. He knows how to settle in it. He's got a release package. Getting off press is not a problem. Listen, if there's anything that's negative to his game, it's probably 2 things. One, there's just not a lot of good reps of him as a run blocker, which you would like to see. But again, for a wide receiver, is that going to be the be all end all with me? No, it's not. The bigger thing for me is that it just took him a while to get going, right? He started Eastern Kentucky before he transferred to Iowa State in 2023, and he started every game that he was ever at Iowa State. He's got he's got over 45 starts under his belt between both colleges, but he never really kind of broke out until this year at 23 years old. So it's a late bloomer. And that usually is usually a sign. They call that the domination age. The earlier that you become a consistent force of the offense, where you're collecting more than a third of the targets, if you have X amount of receptions and X amount of for receivers, X amount of receptions, X amount of yards, X amount of target share. The analytic nerds will talk about that as your dominator rated. His didn't happen until he was 22 years old, which is usually a sign that he might be as good as he's going to get. There's not that high of a ceiling. But I'll take it. I'll take exactly what he's given you. And like I said, when you talk about compliments to Garrett Wilson, this is it for me. There's no other receiver in this class that I think compliments Garrett Wilson in an offense better than what Jaden Higgins gives you.
I'm going to throw a name out there that might be a hideously incorrect name to throw out, but as a Jet, if I was to take a Jet, it gives me the vibes of if he hit his full potential. Let's say if he hit his ceiling.
I know who you're going to say.
I don't know if you are.
I know.
Not the one who wrote the book. Before that, way back, we're talking 80s.
No, then
I'm getting an Al Toon kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Al Toon was a big guy, but he was quick and fast. He, great hands, big range.
Yeah. I think he's more Keyshawn Johnson than Al Toon.
Okay. I mean, that would have been my other. I mean, same difference.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, pretty much. Like
I think he's a lot more, and he's actually fat. I mean, Keyshawn was only 4'5", 4'5". He's 4'4" He's much faster than Keyshawn. I think Keyshawn was probably a little bit more physical. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit more physical. But yeah, both of those are guys I think are really good comps for Jets. And this is the guy, if I had to circle and target with a wish list to Santa Claus to dump in the mailbox, this is the guy I want at 42.
Yeah, you know what? I tend to agree with you. As much as I have my guys that I love and everything, and that I think have higher ceilings maybe, but he might be the best balance of a high ceiling with not the low floor.
Correct.
And I'm talking about guys even above him. I think that I feel like his floor is he'll just be a really, really, really good WR2 that complements Garrett Wilson beautifully. Like, I don't see it being worse than that. It's hard for me to even imagine it based on what we've seen of him.
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that, Jeremy. Is that I don't know if he'll ever be the focal point of an offense, but guys like this have long careers in the NFL. He had a point in college, 2 colleges, 5 years playing football. You know what his drop rate was? 1.9%.
Jeez.
In 5 years, 45 starts, 1.9% drop rate. He catches everything, man. He just catches everything, man. He catches everything. He's really good. He's got an average depth of target over 13 yards. Like I said, will he ever be 100 catch guy? Probably not. But he could be 70 catches for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. And you take that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I love it, man. Love the player.
Yeah. I am my fingers are crossed that he's on the board at 42. That's to me, I it doesn't matter if you choose, I know the 2 buzz names at 7 right now are Membo and Warren, and I wouldn't care which one. I have my preference, but if one of them went, I'd still want Jaden Higgins at 42.
Yeah, if Higgins is on the board, there's very few players I would imagine, wanting more than him. I mean, I have how much I love Dorian Alexander, but I kind of have this hope of this dream that he'll be there at 73.
Yeah, you better get that dream out of your mind. I don't think
It's
that's
not going to
happening.
happen.
I don't even think he's going to be there at 42.
Wow. Well, he
Yeah.
is. He deserves it. He's amazing, incredible
Yeah.
player.
Yeah. All right, so let's go on to 3.
Yeah. I'll take Higgins though. We could live with Higgins.
I would love Jaden Higgins. So number 3 is a guy. So, and it's funny that you said what you said before, Jeremy, because this is a guy that people are very hot on or very cold on. There's guys in the scouting world who I've become very good friends with. A couple of them have him as the wide receiver 1 in the class.
Wow.
And I'm not surprised, because I think his upside, maybe Matthew Golden has more upside if it all connects, but outside of that, I don't think anybody else has a higher upside, of potential, than Luther Burden III out of Missouri.
You're gonna have to sell me on this guy. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to
So-
sell me on this guy. I gotta tell you.
I'm gonna.
Yeah. Admittedly,
ahead.
there wasn't a lot of film on him
Mhm.
on the account that we share. The guy
Yeah.
that we watch his film. There wasn't a lot of good stuff. So I'll admit it. It might not be his fault. I cooled off on him because I couldn't get anything on film that got me excited.
Yeah, and the funny part is that I think that this year's film, it wasn't very exciting. But you watch his 23 film, and he was dominant. He was absolutely dominant. You talk about a guy, he's sub 6 feet tall. He's 210 pounds. Again, that short, stocky bowling ball build, but he is not slot dominant. He might play more reps in the slot when it's all said and done, in a season, but he's got inside-outside versatility. Very similar, not skill set, but just like Elijah Moore. We thought he was a slot receiver. You could play him on the outside and he can get away with it. Very similar to, there's a lot of guys in the NFL that are a little bit smaller, but have a skill set to get away on the outside. This guy has elite elusiveness. The way he explodes, he's much more explosive than he is fast, and he's pretty damn fast himself. But he can touch anytime you put the ball in his hands, he can turn it into a touchdown. And that to me is why I say his ceiling is so sky high, because you just don't know. He's truly hands down the best game changer of all these wide receivers. Pass catcher with the ball in his hands, and the yak as a return man. He returned 8 punts for touchdowns.
Wow.
Yeah. He returned 8 punts for touchdowns. This is a guy that you line him up in the slot, and I can see that slot fade. Like Buffalo runs that route all the time. This guy, I think, has the capabilities to really. I don't know if he's reached his potential, and that's why I say people are either super, super high on him, or they're kind of just like lukewarm. He struggled this year, not necessarily. I mean, he had 9 touchdowns and 1,200 yards. It's not really struggling, but the offense, the quarterback play was so atrocious at Missouri that it really hindered his skill set and his stats. He was a second team all SEC 2 years ago, and he was an honorable mention this year. So he was he got, statistically he got worse, but man, he can go from 0 to 60 in a blink of an eye. And he can run back. He can run past people. He can run through people with the ball in his hands. He's Percy Harvin on crack. That's what he is. That's his game style.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's no chance he's there at 42.
No, I'm there. There's an absolute chance he's there at 42. Like I said, I think anybody from 2 to 9 could be there at 42. It depends what happens. It depends if there's a push at other positions. We talk about how strong this defensive line class is, right? Both in the tackles and the edge. Those guys could get pushed up. There's going to be teams, whether we want to believe it or not, that are going to trade back up into the bottom half of the first round for quarterbacks, right? Not every team needs wide receivers. So he might be able to last until 42. Would I bet on it? I'd probably bet against it, but there's definitely a possibility. It's not like, it wouldn't be crazy if he's on the board there at 42. But man, he's electric. And when you talk about Aaron Glenn and Muji, two of the things that they said is speed and acceleration, or speed and violence. And that's what this guy's game is built on: speed and violence. Again, it's a little one note to what you have in Malachi Corley, or at least what you hope you have in Malachi Corley. So I don't know if the fit is truly there, but if a talent like Luther Burden III was on the board at 42, because I had Malachi Corley, it wouldn't preclude me from taking him. And then you throw all three of those guys on the field and let them figure it out. Say who are you gonna cover? You're gonna cover these two jitterbugs. You're gonna cover Garrett Wilson.
Would Malachi Corley been in your top 10 this year if he came out this year?
He might have been right at about 10. I didn't have him. I didn't have him graded very high last year. I know for a fact I had a 3rd round grade on him. I don't remember if it was a 3rd, 4th. So he probably would have been right around that 10, 11, 12 spot.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get into 2.
Yeah. Let me get to my page here. This is an exciting one. I know you love this guy. I thought there was a chance this guy would, and for a while, it looked like you were going to move this guy into the 1 slot.
Yeah, well, listen, they were very close grade-wise, but after I went back and rewatched, I bumped up. I mean, Tet's my number 1, so I bumped Tet up into the number 1 spot. My number 2 is Emeka Buka. But just so you know, like, Tet is my 11th player on the board. Emeka Buka is my 17th. They're right there.
Right.
Yeah, and they're the only 2 wide receivers that I have in the top 30. Now, actually, Luther Burden's at 30. So
okay.
Yeah. Emeka Buka, man. I don't know if people realize how good of a receiver he is, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
He is. People think that he's going to be a slot-only guy. I beg to differ. I think he can do a lot from the inside and the outside, similar to JSN. This guy has the pedigree, 5-star recruit, Gatorade player of the year in the state of Washington. He was, he's been dominant on the field at Ohio State since the day he walked on, right? He was on the field in 2021 with Olave, with Wilson, and with Njigba. And, he was arguably as good as those guys as a freshman. As a sophomore, he was even better. 2nd team All Big Ten. Then 2023 got hurt. 2023 hurt a hamstring. And then he hurt his ankle. He did that high ankle thing where he had to have that tightrope surgery. So 2023 was a wash for him. And, he was on a trajectory to be of the level of those top-end Ohio State guys, the Olaves, the Wilsons, the Joey Galloways, Emeka Buka, the JSNs. Emeka Buka is as good, if not better, than all of those guys. You talk about precision in his route running. There's nobody better than Emeka Buka. You talk about dependable target. You talk about high football IQ. You're talking about guys who can find soft spots in the zone, can come back to the ball when the quarterback's in distress. You talk about run blockers. This guy decleats linebackers, takes them right off of their feet. Only a 5% drop catch rate throughout his entire collegiate career. Now, he ran most of his stuff from the slot, but that's just because that's the way that the Chip Kelly and the offense that they had over there in Ohio State really utilized their strengths. They went from the inside out. So I think he can play on the outside. I don't know if I would put him solely on the boundary as an X receiver, but if you had him as the Z or the move receiver where you have him in motion and can help him kind of force some separation and stuff like that, I think he'd be excellent. He's not a burner. He's not a 4-3, 4-4 guy, high 4-4s, low 4-5s. That's just what he is. But we see guys excel that have, Puka Nakua is a 4-5-6. Cooper Kupp's a 4-6 guy. This guy is that type of player. There's no doubt in my mind that this guy is that type of player.
Could he be, based on who our offensive coordinator is, could he be our Amon St. Brown?
He could be Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that's the comp that I think everyone gives to him. He's got the same build. He's got the same skill set. I'm not saying he's the player Amon-Ra St. Brown is. That's not fair to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
But but that's his ceiling for sure.
Mhm.
I think he could be that type of player. Absolutely. Yeah. There's not a lot that Emeka Egbuka does bad.
I have never said this before, but I'm actually thinking it in my head. If there's no trade partner and the Jets took this kid at 7, I'd be okay.
I wouldn't. I would not hesitate. I would not be upset. I think Jets Twitter might shut down.
Right.
But I think that's because a lot of people don't really know how good he really is.
But man, if he played opposite of Garrett Wilson and lit it up, if he was lighting it up with Garrett Wilson and we had these two guys, man, these two just absolute studs. Yeah. Nobody's mad when the pick works, right? Like all of a sudden, all the people that hated Will McDonald when he was getting those sacks at the beginning of last year after a few games, magically all the haters went away. We didn't hear about it anymore. What a horrible pick it was.
Yeah.
So at 7, Twitter will blow up. People will go nuts. People will be pissed off. We overpaid. We overreached. Blah 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 blah. But if he starts catching passes and making big plays, how fast does that just go away?
Yeah. And listen, remember, you talked about Will McDonald. Remember that draft? Who was the guy that most of the Jets fan base wanted, right? Everyone was pining for JSN. JSN was the guy. He was going to be perfect. Well, guess what? Emeka Egbuka is better than JSN right now. Yeah. And no disrespect to JSN. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying Emeka Egbuka is better than him right now.
Right.
He comes in and he's better. He's a better player in the NFL than JSN.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to put it out there that if there's no trade partner, even though I think if we were going to do this, I would say, freaking, are you trying to sell at 75 cents to the dollar? Like, get back a little bit. Don't like whatever you can get from Dallas, because if you're going to take him at 7, he'll be there at 12. Just get something.
Yeah.
Sell it cheap, get something, and then maybe everyone will feel a little bit better. We get even a 4th round pick, something, something like 105, 106, some kind of pick. And then take them. But if you absolutely can't and you take them at 7, it's okay. I hope everyone will just, it's going to drive me crazy because I'm going to just want everybody to shut up. It's just wait and see the kid play.
That's right.
Because if he starts lighting it up, and Justin Fields now has Garrett Wilson and another target that's also a very special player, it's going to help him be successful. It's going to help Justin Fields a lot.
Yeah. Now the thing with Emeka Egbuka and why I have him at 2 and why I have Tet McMillan, who you can put up on the board. He's my number 1 receiver.
Right. Let's go find Tet on my banner. So this is a guy I've loved from the start. That I love him. I absolutely love McMillan.
Mm-hmm. And as you should, because he's awesome. All right. So the difference with McMillan and Egbuka is I think McMillan's ceiling is even higher than Ibuka's. McMillan has a chance. McMillan has it in him if he puts it all together, where he can be a top 10 receiver, pretty quickly in this game. The problem is that he's also got probably a little bit lower of a floor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If some of the speed stuff really plays, I don't necessarily. I'll talk about the things that bug me about McMillan before I get into the good. I think some people are going to be some people, who read Twitter and whatnot. They'll say, "Oh, he's slow. Oh, he can't get off of press man coverage, so on and so forth." For a guy who's 6'5", 210 pounds, he's not physical. So some of that stuff is right. Like you get a guy like Jalen Ramsey, or you get a guy like Sauce Gardner, that's pressed up on him, real physical press man coverage cornerbacks. McMillan's going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or not. I'm not going to say he's going to struggle, but it's going to be a challenge for him. He's going to have some issues. That's why Arizona used him a lot in the slot. They use him. They put him in motion. They use him in the slot. They forced mismatches with him. They helped create some of the separation for him. So I think those are real issues with McMillan. And if you can't figure that out, then you're looking at a guy who's going to bottom out as, a just another guy,
Mm-hmm.
But the things that he does is so special at times, right? 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns last year. He's tough to bring down for a big guy like that. He's got some really good yards after the catch. Like we said, he hasn't, he finally ran, and, he ran exactly where everyone thought he was going to run, in the low 4.5s. That's just what he is. He's not, he's not 4.2. He's not 4.3. No one ever thought that he was going to be that. But strong hands. Again, another guy with an under 3% dropped catch rate. Huge hands, huge long arms, huge catch radius. He can go up and jump and make those and make catches at the high point better than anyone in this class. Better than anyone in this class. He has dominated, physically taken over and dominated football games in the Pac-10, in the whatever Arizona plays in now, whatever conference they're in. I mean, there's been times where you just couldn't stop him. Travis Hunter, who we all love, right? We love Travis Hunter. He's going to be a top 3 pick in this draft.
Yeah.
Tet McMillan took him to school. Tet McMillan owned him when Arizona played Colorado.
Wow.
He's just, he's probably better than most anybody he stepped on the college football field against. Double teams, triple teams. They had him bracketed high-low. He still came down with balls. Runs through contact, all the stuff that you want from your typical X, except the physicality. He just doesn't play big. He doesn't play to his size. He plays like a guy who's 6 foot tall, 195 pounds, like Garrett Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 6'5", 210.
What's exciting about his potential, if he hit his ceiling, is just a huge difference maker for your red zone offense.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think people underestimate that. Like if he hits a ceiling, right. If he's the guy that can get physical in the end zone when he has to, like, how many games come down to just not being able to get the touchdown and having to settle for 3?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's what separates championship teams from just good teams. Right. I mean, the ability to get the 7 points.
If it all works out for him, you're looking at a guy with Mike Evans potential. If it doesn't work out, you're looking at Mike Williams. That's the variety and variability, right?
Yeah.
Now, Mike Williams, one would say, is a pretty, in his prime, was a pretty decent receiver, but he was known for what? He was known for those jump balls, 50-50 contested, run those kind of intermediate routes, not going to run by anybody, anything like that. A lot of 60 receptions for 1,000 yards, but 10, 11 touchdowns. I think that if that's that could be his floor. And for me, I'm just wary about his floor being that and taking him at 7.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not catastrophic. I mean, there are catastrophic picks in the top 10. I mean, we've had it, we've experienced it, we've lived it. Guys who bring nothing to the team ever, like Vernon Gulston, right? Kyle Brady. Like, we've had top 10 picks that have amounted to nothing. Zach Wilson, maybe one of the worst in our history, based on it just killed it. It killed an entire 5 years, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It killed everything. So I don't think, by what you said, it's not catastrophic. It would be disappointing if he was only a Mike Williams, but but in the prime, getting 700 to 900 yards, 5 to 7 touchdowns, along opposite of Garrett Wilson, is not horrible. It's a legitimate WR2. But I think the biggest regret will be if that's what he becomes. There's going to be a guy like Egbuka or Golden, or Jaden Higgins. Like, one of these guys is going to be a star, or two of them are going to be stars. And what we're going to be upset about is we could have had one of them. Mm-hmm. And that's what Jet fans will be the most upset about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, if you told me that you're a floor on a guy with Mike Williams and that's what you were going to get, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I said, Mike Williams had multiple seasons where he scored 12 touchdowns, multiple seasons where he had over 1,000 yards. But at 7, I think we just expect more.
Yeah,
I would expect more out of number 7. That's my only thing. Like he's probably 3 or 4 in my pecking order if we stick and pick at number 7. And for me, it's Tyler Warren or a tackle or Mike Green. I know, and I'm of the minority there. I know no one else wants an edge, but I think people are downplaying how much we do need an edge,
But
and how good Mike Green is.
Well, they're forgetting what it means to have, like, we get satisfied easy, which is the guy who can get 10 sacks, 11 sacks. But I think we're forgetting what it's like to have a Max Crosby, like, or a Micah Parsons, or, a Watts, like or Bosa, a guy who changes the game.
Yep.
On
both aspects too. People don't talk about Mike Green enough on how good he is against the run.
Well, they just weren't there at the Senior Bowl like we were. We saw the rep.
Yeah. So Tet McMillan's right there. Like, if we took him, it's not that I would be upset, but I'd be very, very cautious, right? I'd be very hesitant. And I think the NFL's, at least the vibe is, that's what a lot of the NFL teams are thinking too. That's why people are talking about maybe Matthew Golden being the first receiver taken off the board.
Right.
Because the floor might not be that low on Matthew Golden as it is in Tet McMillan. Because if he can't get stronger and he struggles against press that much, then how is he going to maintain, and play that dominant X receiver in the NFL? He's probably not going to. So
I'd say the one thing that hasn't changed since late November, early December for me in mock drafts, one thing that has not changed is it was true then and it's true now. We trade back. If we had a trade partner, we traded back to the high teens, low 20s and got Egbuka. And now you've added to my list. If it's Golden, if it's Higgins, any of that. But if Egbuka specifically, if we traded back to 20 and ended up with Egbuka and ended up with a second round pick this year, an extra second round pick, and something next year that we could use maybe if we need ammunition to trade up a little bit for a quarterback. I just can't think of a better scenario for this organization, for this new regime, like for the next 1 to 5 years to come. I can't think of a better scenario than that. Get me an extra second round pick this year, an extra second round pick next year, maybe even a first round pick next year. I don't know what the cost is going to be. But if we traded back, like with the Seattle wanted to come all the way up, let's say, because they want a receiver or whatever it is. And we do a flip like that with some team, or Pittsburgh wants to go for their quarterback now, and flips with us. I'm just all over that. I just think it would be the greatest. I'd be so happy. It would be such a great move for us.
Yeah, I don't disagree, man. I don't disagree. And listen, if you traded back, I don't know if we're going to trade back in the first. I know that Muji wants to, or is going to try to for sure. But if you did, and just say, hypothetical here, you trade back into like the early to mid teens, looking for, thinking that that's going to be your comfort spot for like Tyler Warren or something like that. And then somebody like the Saints or the Panthers or the Saints go and take Tyler Warren out from under your neck, and you ended up with a guy like McMillan there or Ibuka. I think you're going to be, I think you'll be fine. I'm much more comfortable rolling the dice with a guy like Ibuka at 15 than I am at 7.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, it would feel better because it would feel more normal for what the class says. But
yes.
And getting that extra pick would just be tremendous. Because I agree with you. Like, for all we know, he's going to be like St. Brown, or a little bit or close enough to it to make us all just be like, ecstatic. Like, he might just be a stud, and everybody wants to trade for Olave. Well, I think this kid's better than Olave because he doesn't have the concussions.
Yeah, and they're different receivers too, him and Olave. But but I think Emeka Egbuka is gonna, in the next couple of years or so, a lot of people are gonna warm up and realize, what he does is really, really good and really, really special.
I love it. So those are your top 10 wide receivers.
Yes.
And it just looks great to me. I mean, man, I hope McMillan, man, if we took him, obviously, if we don't take him, he's dead to me. But if we take him, I really hope that he becomes the part of me that gets excited when I watch him play. Like there's this little, like, I understand and I agree. I think I'm on the same exact page with you that he has a lower floor than some of the other guys, which is really scary.
Yeah.
But man, if he hits his ceiling, there's something about him when I watch him play, a freakness to him, a specialness to him, where it just gives me this vibe that he could be such a star in this league.
Oh yeah.
You know, such a special player. And wow, would it be so great as Jet fans to have that added on to Garrett Wilson? It's like, my only concern is, and I know it might only be for a year, it might be for a year and a half while he grooms somebody else. My only concern is Justin Fields going to be able to utilize a WR2? Is he going to be RPO1 read Garrett Wilson all day? Is he going to be able to read through a second progression, or are we going to be able to mix up the play calling where the number 2 receiver gets their opportunities? I just like, you see the passing yardage of a Justin Fields up to this point in his career, and you're like, is there enough yards there for 2 receivers to have numbers that are going to get you excited and not scream that he was a bust, just simply because the passing yardage is not going to be there for our team?
Yeah, I agree. We don't know. We don't know what the Justin Fields is a big anomaly right now. We don't know what this offense is going to look like. You got Engstrom, who's going to be new to it, Jeremy. So, listen, Justin Fields made a player. He made he made DJ Moore really, really good. His first year there in Chicago. So I'm confident that there's going to be enough balls to go around to support a wide receiver too. Maybe not at the volume of like Cincinnati or one of these teams that are, the Rams that are really, really pass happy, because I think we're going to want to be more of a run dominant offense, ball control, stylistic play. That's my guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely see us that way. I see us as a running team, which is why we might not see a receiver in the first round, because if the Jets coaching staff sees us as a run first team, they might be looking more at Membu and a right tackle and making sure that we have that wall and those grinders who can create those holes and, help us, grind and be the running team we want to be. Yeah. But again, like you said, any of those guys 2 through 9 could be there in the second round. So we could still get our WR. We can get our offensive lineman, wide receiver. Would be surprising to go offense the first 2 rounds. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the way our offense has been for the last 12 years, 13, 14 years, can anyone really complain if we invest our first 2 picks in offense?
Yeah, no. Like I said, if I had my druthers, it would go tight end, wide receiver, offensive tackle, 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
And then I'll piece together the rest of it, because there's going to be tons of defensive guys that I love down there in rounds 4 and 5.
Yeah, one of our tackles will be there somewhere.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, great show. I want to thank everybody who was here. Danger Zone and Harlan and all you guys. Jet Ward, thanks for joining us. My friend Thomas Bongiovi rode in on his horse.
E-Boogie.
Boba yes. Jet, right? All you guys, man. Sean McAteer, my buddy. Everybody, Wild Wave. Everybody is Billy SBC. All you guys. Harlan. Love you guys that you come out and support Eric Craig, Tony Alexio. But what I love more is those of you who watch, who don't chat at all, the ones who are not chatting but are watching, that you just because we don't call your name. Appreciate all of you guys that are watching. We'll be back next week. We'll keep reviewing the position rooms as we get closer to the draft, and then we'll have some exciting things after the draft that we're talking about doing. So remember, this is a place for information. This is a place for expertise. Dom C is bringing that expertise as good as anybody I know. So this is where you come for it, and we'll be here every Sunday. Take care, everybody. Peace out. And I guess I will leave you with this.
A positional group like the tight end group, this is the draft class to do it. It is very deep.
I'm with Green Bean. I mean, to me, the tight ends that you want to have on a team, it's always nice if you can get the guy that does it all.
I think it's going to be a functional part of the offense. You better get somebody in there that can play, or get a couple guys that do something, extraordinarily well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dom C here with the Talking Jets Network. I'm lucky enough to grab tight end from Georgia Tech, Jackson Hollis. Jackson, how's it feel to be back on the field, my brother?
It's great, man. You know, right when we were getting on that bus, I was just excited.
And that's Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech. Now, he didn't say anything. He continued and did all the drills on an ankle. Another guy with under a 4% drop rate throughout his collegiate career.
Jets Network were able to get a hold of Terrence Ferguson, tight end, Oregon. Dude, great practice so far. How's it feel to be back on the field?
Oh man, it feels good to be out here. I love competing. There's a lot of great players out here, so go against.
Meet our friend Harold Fannin.
See here with the Talking Jets Network. Lucky to grab Bowling Green tight end Harold Fannin Jr. Harold,
Former college quarterback. He's thrown, he's got touchdown passes in his career. He matches movements and he matches, he's got quick feet. Like I said, he's another guy who's got a nose for the ball, turns the ball over all the time. Again, another smooth mover, clicks and closes.